Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 7's Khorne. So if you like skulls for the Skull Throne, this is your team. So we're looking at all the teams in Blood Bowl 2020, whether they're from the rulebook, the Teams of Legend PDF, or like Khorne, one of the two expanded NAF teams. The link for all that stuff is below. So Khorne, featured in Blood Bowl 1, and then very heavily on the tabletop for a while, is a frenzy heavy team with some Khorne demons and a Bloodthirster. This team is the reason I bought Blood Bowl 1, and I spent basically most of my time playing Blood Bowl 1 running this ridiculous team. Now, we haven't seen it from Games Workshop, we haven't even been hinted at by Games Workshop, but I'd be very surprised if they didn't find a way to get this into the game finally at some point. However, thanks to the NAF, Khorne and Slann, who play very, very uniquely, can be featured in your NAF tournaments, and I totally recommend checking them out, and if you've got a tournament or a league, allowing them, because they are not overpowered. They can have some great combos, they can work really, really well. It's a unique challenge, and it's really a team that plays unlike any other. Anyway, this is a roster series for Blood Bowl 7s. Blood Bowl 7s is a quick play variant of Blood Bowl. It plays on a smaller pitch with smaller teams in a much smaller time frame. And on a smaller pitch with more space, Khorne is going to have a good time. So, strengths and weaknesses of the Khorne team. First up, we've got the Bloodthirster. So the Bloodthirster is a veritable demigod on the Blood Bowl pitch. This is the most expensive player out there who is not a star player, so the most expensive positional. 180,000, movement 6, strength 5, agility 5 plus, passing nothing, doesn't matter who's passing with this guy. Armor 10 plus, claw, frenzy, horns, juggernaut, loner, unchanneled fury, and regeneration. So, right. Let's start with the boring great stuff here. Strength 5, armor 10 plus, and regeneration. If anyone does beat your Bloodthirster into the ground, it's just going to put itself back together again and come back more angry. And talking of angry, frenzy, juggernaut, horns. Okay, let's put that together. We'll come to claws in a second. Let's put that together. This thing blitzes at strength 6 with juggernaut and frenzy. So it is probably going to be the guy who is blitzing on your team. It's got unchanneled fury, so you need to roll a 2+ to do a blitz or a block. But you want to be blitzing or blocking with this thing every single turn anyway. Now in 7s, it's almost a third of your team value. However, if you set it up for any kind of block, it doesn't even... come on, it's strength 6 on the blitz. What is it blocking against that's not going to get it a really good block? With frenzy and jugs, juggernaut is going to keep it standing if you roll those both down. It's just going to push and have another go. And when it does smash your opponent to the ground, because it will, it's got claw. So everybody's armor gets broken on the roll of an 8+. The Bloodthirster is the removal piece of Blood Bowl. Love it to bits. It is inconsistent, however. So if you want to move this guy, you have to use your blitz. If you don't use your blitz, you're rolling a 4+, and it's got loner 4+ as well. So if you fail something, it's probably staying failed, especially in 7s where you don't get a ton of rerolls. Now, in the long run, Pro is pretty good, I think, on the Bloodthirster because it's going to keep you active doing what you need it to do. But quite frankly, this thing is here to make sure that other things aren't. Bloodletters are also pretty awesome. So they have also got horns, they've also got juggernaut, but the Bloodletters don't have frenzy. They are the only player on the team that doesn't have frenzy. You can take up to 4 of them, they're 80k a piece, their movement 6, strength 3, edge 3+, passing 4+, armor 8+, horns, jugs, regen, and they get gas. General agility and strength on a primary skill. So they are your toolkit pieces. Now they're so important in 7s because they are basically better beastmen. They're beastmen that have regeneration and they start with juggernaut. So if you need to blitz out of somewhere with the ball and you're a Bloodletter, it's going to be 2 dice and you're going to have juggernaut to make sure that you can push your opponent away. You don't have frenzy, so you don't have to follow up, and then you can move around and go on your merry little way into the end zone. The weaknesses to this roster is, unfortunately, head right into the strengths, which is frenzy. So frenzying badly is a terrible way to lose a game. You can frenzy well, you can win well. If you can't frenzy well, then you're just going to throw a load of dice and hope it doesn't go wrong. And if it does go wrong, because the rerolls for this team are 140k in 7s, because in 7s it's doubled, you're not going to have any, so those dice are going to be raw. But that's okay, because most of the time you're going to be rolling 2 die blocks, maybe even 3 die blocks with these guys, and you've got Juggernaut and a bunch of your core players. So you should be okay to just keep your guys on ground. No skills, however, anywhere. No block, no sure hands, no dodge. It's a tough life being a Khorne person, because everybody's got Frenzy, a couple of guys have got Juggernauts, and you are just there to maim. Alright, let's have a look at our first roster. So the BT in 3 comes in at bang on 600k. You get 1 Bloodthirster, 3 Bloodletters, and 3 Pit Fighters. You get no rerolls, you get no bench, but you don't need it. Your opponent will, however. So those 3 Pit Fighters have got Frenzy. Your 3 Bloodletters don't. And that's really important, because it means you've got a little bit of reliability on your team. Frenzy's great, but if you're strength 3 like the Pits are with no combat skills, you can get led on a very merry chase that ends up with your brains being splattered all over the ground. Talking of brains everywhere, you do still have the Bloodthirster. So the great thing about this roster is you've got those 3 Bloodletters who can Khorne's Juggernaut their way out of trouble if they needed to. If they don't need to, then you've got a Bloodthirster who can Khorne's Juggernaut, Claw, Strength 6, Frenzy, and just smash face. So this roster is all built around protecting your Bloodthirster for a short period of time before you then unleash him on your foes. Now those Pit Fighters having Frenzy means that you are going to be able to, across the course of a game, get more blocks in than your opponent. As long as you can maneuver things to make it profitable, you're going to basically smash them to pieces. The Bloodthirster skill wise, Mighty Blow doesn't combo with Claws the way it used to, but it does still combo with Claws, because you use Claws to get to 8+, break their armor, and then Mighty Blow goes on the armor roll, which means you've got really good odds at taking players off the pitch. And in 7s, they've got less players to get off the pitch. So you build up you build up the advantage of numbers of players on the pitch, you're going to help yourself win the game. Now, if you've got secondary skills, and this is a tier 2 team, so the chances are in most 7s formats, you're going to get a couple of primary, maybe 1 general. Block is tasty on everybody in this roster. Specifically, the Bloodthirster has jugs, and it's going to be blitzing most of the time. Block seems great on the Bloodthirster, and it's going to help it protect it, and it is just going to help take things down. It does have jugs, and you are going to be blitzing, so I think Mighty Blow is potentially a better skill to put on the Bloodthirster in a really limited skill environment. Those Bloodletters get everything, so if you want a dodger, your Bloodletter's your guy. If you want block, sure hands, guard, Bloodletters are great. Block goes on Pit Fighters really, really well, and kick is going to be quite useful, because if you can bring your opponent in close to you, you can knife them to death with your Bloodthirster's claws. So Max Frenzy is our next roster, again coming in at 600, 1 Bloodthirster, 2 Heralds, and 4 Pit Fighters. Everybody has Frenzy. I am just going to go right out and say it. This is a terrible idea. Don't do this. Unless you want to have a really, really, really fun time. So the Max Frenzy roster, basically you've got 1 Strength 5/6 on the Blitz Frenzy piece. You've got 2 Heralds that have got horns as well, and they can do some maiming of their own. So the Khorne Heralds, movement 6, strength 3, and 3+, passing 5+, armor 9+, a little bit tougher than your regular guy, Frenzy, horns, and Juggernaut. So no regen on the Heralds, but they've got slightly more armor, and they start with Frenzy, horns, and jugs. So you have got 3 Blitz bombs here that are either going to be blitzing at strength 6 or strength 4. And then you've got 4 guys backing him up who also have Frenzy. So you've got no rerolls anywhere, not even a little bit, not ever going to have a chance. Don't even worry about it at all, because you are running hot on dice. So this roster here is all about positioning well and rolling better than your opponent. But if you want to reroll, you can do it, you just have to give up the Bloodthirster. Next roster, we'll talk it through. So the no BT reroll is coming in at 600 as well. 2 Bloodletters, 5 Pit Fighters, and that reroll. So you drop your Strength 6 Cruise Missile, but you replace it with 2 of those Bloodletters. Now those Bloodletters are going to be Strength 4 on the Blitz. They're going to be Strength 4, they've got Jugs, and they've got Frenzy. So you've got a ton of combat potential here, and you've got that all-important 1 reroll. This is going to be more consistent. But if you come up against a big guy roster, Ogres, something with Trolls, Chaos Renegades are looking pretty tasty in this format, you're going to struggle with that strength element. the Bloodthirster basically trumps all but a couple of big guys. This roster is going to trump basically everything on the lower end, but when you come up against equal or better strength, you're going to struggle, because that frenzy means your first block may be good, but your second block may not be. And I guarantee you, if you frenzy into a place where your second block is not going to be good, be prepared to roll it, because it's going to happen. And the last roster we have for you today is the Little Demons roster. This one comes in at 580, so chuck a couple of assistant coaches in there just to give you that little tiny chance of swinging that reroll on the kickoff table. 2 Heralds, 2 Letters, and 4 Pit Fighters. This roster has a bench, has 2 players that don't have frenzy, and everybody else does. So you've got that kind of option for the bench, and when somebody dies, you've got someone to take their spot. The Heralds are going to be there to do the maiming. Okay, they've got frenzy, they've got jugs, and they've got horns to blitz with strength 4. So they're going to be able to strike wherever you want them to do, and most of the time they're going to be able to get a quad block. Okay, that is to say 2 frenzy, 2 die. That's pretty good odds, especially with jugs. It's going to keep you on your feet. This roster is about positioning your opponent, pushing them out of the way with the frenzy, and you've got a little bit of reliability here with the fact that the blood letters are there. They've got regen, they don't have frenzy, so you do have an option to actually have a bit of support. And the cool thing about those letters is because they don't have guard, they don't have frenzy, they become really good opportunity players for a cheeky bit of guard. Now, Herald's letters both get strength on a general, so guard is going to be massive for this roster, as I'm sure you can appreciate, because the more strength you've got when you're frenzying, the more dice you roll, the more chance you have of powering your opponent into obliteration. So being able to put guard on a couple of these players is really going to work it. You're missing the Bloodthirster, but you're also not all in on the Bloodthirster. This is a really interesting roster, and I think Games Workshop is potentially going to land the Khorne roster in a different guise. They played with a Savage Orc roster that was all about frenzy. I think this is the kind of thing that we'll see if Games Workshop does a Savage Orc roster. I don't think we'll get a big frenzy big guy. I think we'll get a ton of little guys with advantages when they frenzy. So the Little Demons roster is it's got a lower ceiling but a higher floor. But that's not what we're here for. If I was going to be running Khorne, this is potentially the better roster of the lot. You've got that Thirster to run around and maim at will. You've got the Pit Fighters there, so you've got a continuation of Frenzy. But you've also got 3 Bloodletters that aren't necessarily going to be led on a merry little chase. This is probably the most mid-range of this roster. You're not all in on Frenzy. I think the Max Frenzy roster will be great fun when it works. But this gives you the opportunity to let your Bloodthirster go up and crush things. Your Letters and Pit Fighters can fight in pairs. Hopefully those Letters can give you the advantage to make each one of those Pit Fighters a 4 die block. That is 2 die followed by another 2 die to really maximize those blocks and use them to power your opponents down. If you can get a couple of player edges, the more edge you get on board with this team, the better your blocks are, and it snowballs so well. So use that Bloodthirster, use those Pit Fighters to target vulnerable players, and as you can collapse their lines, 7 versus 6 is good, 7 versus 5 is better, and you are just going to decimate them. If you go toe to toe, 1 die blocking with Frenzy and no skill, it's going to be bad for you. But every now and again it's going to be worth the risk, because if you do power them down, that's 1 more player. 1 more player means 1 more assist, which means 1 more dice, which when you're frenzying means 2 more dice, which means much more death. So the BT in 3 is probably the roster I would recommend for 7s. It gives you the ultimate feeling of all the carnage from Khorne, but still with the ability to play the game. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of Khorne in 7s in the comments below, because I think this is going to be quite entertaining. I'm really intrigued to see where G-Dub go with it, but for now I'm really happy that the NAF have included it in their tournament teams, because no roster plays like this one. Potentially no roster should, but I like the fact that there's something different. It is high risk, high reward. It's going to be great sometimes. It's going to be carnage to the others. This is fun and really puts the blood in Blood Bowl. Thanks very much for watching. Let me know below what you think, and we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy Frenzy. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the show even further, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Or come and join us in our Patreon, link below, where you get early access to our content and monthly competitions. See you later.